I lost everything that once made life whole. My wife, my peace, even my dignity, until all I had left were two little girls looking up at me with questions I couldn't answer. I was mocked, starved, humiliated. Yet one small act of kindness set in motion a chain of events I never saw coming. Do you believe a single moment can change an entire life? If yes, like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. The silence of the apartment pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. Nights were the hardest. That was when the laughter we used to share as a family echoed the loudest in my memory, and the emptiness in the room reminded me of what I had lost. "Daddy, can we sleep in your bed tonight?" one of my girls whispered. I turned my head toward the twins. My little angels, 6 years old, dressed in their faded red pajamas. Their eyes were wide and innocent, clutching their small blankets. "Of course," I said softly. My voice cracked, but I forced a smile. There's always space for my princesses. They climbed into bed on either side of me, their tiny hands wrapped around my arms, their warmth pressing against my chest. I shut my eyes, but inside, I whispered to the empty side of the bed where my wife used to sleep. "I'm trying, love. I really am." Bills scattered across the table in the corner reminded me I wasn't doing enough. My janitor's salary barely covered rent, let alone food. I skipped meals so the girls could eat. Every time I saw them chewing slowly, trying to share their little portions with me, guilt ate me alive. "Daddy," the other twin murmured, "do you miss Mommy?" Her words hit me like a blade. I pulled her closer, pressing my chin against her hair. "Every single day," I whispered, "but Mommy's still with us in our hearts." They nodded, too young to fully understand, but old enough to feel the ache in my voice. Their small breaths slowed as sleep took them, while my eyes stayed open in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Morning came too fast. I dressed in my worn uniform, patched at the elbows. My shoes had holes I tried to hide with black tape. The girls tugged on my sleeves as I walked them to school. "Daddy," one said, looking up, "will you pick us up today?" "I'll be there," I promised, even if it meant running from work, even if it meant risking the anger of my supervisor. On the way, neighbors eyed me the way they always did. Some smiled politely, but others whispered, "That's the man raising kids alone. His wife died. Poor man. Poor girls." Their pity cut deeper than knives. I forced my head high, even though shame burned in my chest. Work smelled of bleach and sweat. As I mopped the long hallway floors, I caught fragments of conversation from the break room nearby. "Can you believe he's still here?" one voice snickered. "Dragging those kids along like dead weight," another chimed in. I froze. My hands tightened on the mop handle. "Poor cleaner with kids," the first voice said louder. "Always looks so pathetic. I almost feel sorry for him." Laughter followed. My throat tightened. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I wanted to storm in there, scream at them, tell them they didn't know me, didn't know what it meant to lose everything and still get up every morning. But I couldn't. I just kept mopping, my back bent, my reflection staring up at me from the wet floor. My daughter's voices echoed in my head. "Daddy, we're proud of you." If only that were enough to silence the world. As I wrung out the mop and forced myself to keep working, I told myself something I barely believed. One day, they won't laugh. One day, I'll stand tall again. But that day felt like a dream too far away. The laughter from the break room still rang in my ears as I pushed my mop bucket down the hallway. I thought that would be the worst of it for the day. I was wrong. "Everyone, clean this place up. We've got a visitor." My supervisor barked. His eyes landed on me. "Especially you. Don't embarrass us." I nodded, swallowing the bitterness in my throat. Minutes later, polished shoes clicked against the floor. A man in a sleek suit walked in, flanked by managers eager to please. His watch gleamed. His tie looked more expensive than my entire paycheck. "That's Mr. Harrington, the CEO," someone whispered near me. I lowered my gaze, focusing on the mop. Still, his voice carried, sharp and commanding. As fate would have it, the man's eyes fell on me, on my uniform, stained from years of scrubbing floors, on my shoes taped at the sides. And then, through the glass doors, he spotted my daughters waiting quietly outside, their red school dresses bright against the dull concrete. He stopped walking, his lips curled. "Tell me," he said loudly, making sure everyone nearby could hear, "what kind of father lets his children wait in rags while he pushes a mop?" The words cut deep. "Sir," my supervisor started nervously. "No, let him answer," the CEO interrupted. His eyes burned into me. "What kind of man can't even provide proper clothes for his children?" Heat rushed to my face. My hands tightened on the mop handle. I wanted to scream, to tell him I worked every hour I could, that I skipped meals so my daughters could eat, that my late wife would have been proud I never abandoned them. But my mouth refused to open. Around us, people chuckled, hiding their grins behind hands. The sound of their laughter was worse than the sting of his words. I finally managed to whisper, "I'm doing the best I can." "What was that?" he asked, leaning closer with mockery in his tone. I swallowed hard, forcing strength into my trembling voice. "I'm doing the best I can for my daughters." He smirked. "Then your best is pathetic." Laughter burst out again, louder this time. My chest ached like it might cave in. Through the glass, I saw my girls' little faces light up as they spotted me. They didn't know what had just happened. They only saw their daddy. My throat tightened as they ran inside, waving. "Daddy!" they shouted together, their voices filling the tense silence. The CEO's eyes flicked to them, then back to me. He shook his head, chuckling to himself as he turned away. The crowd followed him, leaving me standing there in pieces. "Daddy, can we go home now?" One of my daughters tugged at my sleeve. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. "Yes," I whispered. My hand shook as I gathered my things. "Let's go home." The three of us walked out of that building, their small hands clutching mine as if they knew I was about to collapse. I kept my head high for them, but inside, shame screamed louder than any laughter. On the bus ride back, my daughters leaned against me, giggling about school, their innocent chatter trying to pull me out of the darkness. "Daddy," one asked suddenly, "why did that man look so angry at you?" I forced a smile. "He wasn't angry, sweetheart. Some people just don't understand us." "Do we need new dresses?" her sister asked, touching the hem of her faded red uniform. I pulled them both close. "No, you two are perfect just the way you are. Don't ever forget that." They nodded, satisfied with my answer, and soon drifted into soft whispers and laughter again. That night, after tucking them into bed, I sat in the dark kitchen with my head in my hands. The CEO's voice replayed in my mind over and over. "Your best is pathetic." Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them fall until I was sure the girls were asleep. Then I broke, silent sobs shaking me until my chest ached. I wiped my face with the back of my sleeve, the vow from last night still burning in my chest. Never again. But the next morning, reality slapped me in the face. The cupboard was almost empty. A half loaf of stale bread, a few potatoes, and nothing else. My stomach growled, but I shut the door quickly before the girls could see. "Daddy, what's for breakfast?" one of them asked, rubbing her sleepy eyes. I forced a smile. "Something special. Toast." Their faces lit up as if I'd said pancakes. I sliced the bread thin, pretending I wasn't counting each piece. I put the larger ones on their plates, keeping the smallest for myself. "Daddy, you eat too," the other twin insisted, pushing half her slice toward me. "I already ate while you were sleeping." I lied, patting her head. She frowned. "Really?" "Yes, sweetheart. Eat up. You need energy for school." They chewed happily, humming little songs between bites. My stomach twisted, but I took a sip of water and pretended it was enough. After they left for school, I sat at the table staring at the crumbs. Shame hit me harder than hunger. What kind of father can't even feed his kids properly? What kind of man skips meals so his children don't have to? The afternoon didn't get easier. The landlord's letter sat on the counter. Overdue rent. My shoes, taped at the sides, pinched with every step. The cold crept in through thin windows, and the heating bill was another unopened envelope. When I picked the girls up, they bounced toward me, laughter spilling from their mouths. "Daddy, we had music class today," one shouted. "And I sang louder than everyone," the other added, grinning wide. Their joy was a shield, and I clung to it, even as my body felt weak. On the bus home, my stomach growled, so loud one of them looked up. "Daddy, are you hungry?" "No, just tired," I whispered, kissing her forehead. At dinner, I peeled 2 small potatoes and stretched them into a watery soup. The girls slurped it like it was the best meal in the world. "This is yummy," one said. "Better than school lunch," the other added. I forced down a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat. I pretended to sip from my bowl, though I had barely poured anything for myself. When bedtime came, they climbed under their thin blankets. "Daddy, are we poor?" one asked suddenly. Her question froze me. "Why would you ask that?" "Because kids at school said we don't have nice clothes." My chest tightened. I sat on the edge of their bed, stroking her hair. "Listen to me. We may not have much, but we're rich in something they don't understand. Love. That's worth more than clothes or toys." They nodded satisfied and closed their eyes. When they finally drifted asleep, I sat in the dark living room, the silence pressing again, heavy and cruel. I pulled out the small framed photo of my wife, her smile frozen in time. "I'm sorry," I whispered to her. "I can't give them enough. I can't be you, but I swear I'll find a way. I won't let them go hungry. I won't let them lose hope." Tears slid down my face, splashing onto photo. I wiped them quickly, ashamed even in front of her picture. From the bedroom came a soft giggle. My daughters dreaming, laughing in their sleep. That sound pierced through the darkness, fragile but powerful. I pressed the photo to my chest and closed my eyes. Their laughter, it's the only thing keeping me alive. Their laughter and sleep still echoed in my head the next morning as I counted the coins on the table. Barely enough for a bus ride, and maybe 1 cheap cup of coffee to keep me awake through the day. My stomach ached from another night without food, but I pocketed the coins anyway. At the small cafe near work, I stood in line, trying to ignore the smell of fresh pastries I couldn't afford. A woman in front of me placed her order, coffee and a sandwich. She slid her card across the counter. "I'm sorry," the cashier said. "It's declined." The woman's face stiffened. She tried again. Same result. People in line shifted impatiently, sighing. The cashier's tone sharpened. "Do you have another card?" The woman hesitated, digging in her bag, cheeks flushing. For some reason, I couldn't just stand there. My hand went to my pocket, feeling the coins the last of what I had. "I'll cover it," I heard myself say. The woman turned, her eyes wide. "You don't have to." "It's fine," I interrupted, sliding the coins forward. "Just the coffee. I can't afford the sandwich, sorry." The cashier shrugged and took the change. A paper cup slid across the counter, steam curling upward. The woman stared at me, her eyes softer now, almost shining. "Why would you do that?" I managed a small smile. "Because I know what it feels like to need help and not get it." For a moment, silence hung between us. She looked at me like no one had in a long time, not with pity, not with judgment, but with something deeper. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You don't know how much this means." I shook my head. "It's just coffee." "No," she whispered, gripping the cup as if it were more than that. "It's not." I glanced at the clock, panic hitting me. I need to get to work. She nodded, but her gaze followed me as I turned away. I felt it like a weight, like she was memorizing me. On the walk to work, I replayed the moment over and over. Why had I done it? I had barely anything myself. My girls needed me to save every coin, yet something inside me couldn't let her stand there humiliated. Maybe it was because I knew too well what it was like to be laughed at, to be small in front of others. At work, the supervisor barked orders, but his voice faded in my ears. All I could think of was her eyes, grateful, almost trembling. During my break, I called home. "Daddy!" Both girls shouted into the phone at once. I chuckled softly. "Hey, my princesses, did you eat breakfast?" "Yes," one replied proudly. "We saved you some bread." My chest tightened. That's sweet, but you eat it, okay? Daddy's fine. Promise? The other asked. I promise. I lied, my stomach twisting again. Their giggles filled the line, and for a moment, my world felt lighter. When I hung up, my thoughts drifted back to the woman in the cafe. Her thank you hadn't been normal. It had carried weight, like she'd been carrying something much heavier than a declined card. That night, after the girls fell asleep, I sat at the table with my wife's photo again. I spent our last coins on someone else today. I whispered. I don't know if it was foolish or right, but her eyes, they reminded me that kindness is all I have left to give. The photo stared back, silent as always, but in my heart, I imagined her voice. You did the right thing. I leaned back, exhaling into the quiet apartment. I didn't know who that woman was. I didn't know if I'd ever see her again. But something told me that small act, one paper cup of coffee, wasn't the end of the story. I couldn't shake her eyes from my mind. That quiet, thank you, stayed with me through every shift, every empty plate on the table. Every night, I whispered apologies to my daughters for not giving them more. I told myself I'd never see her again. I was wrong. Boss wants to see you. Now, my supervisor barked a few days later. My chest tightened. This is it. They're letting me go. I walked down the hall, my palms sweating. The door loomed at the end, polished, heavy, expensive. I'd passed 100 times, but never imagined stepping inside. I pushed it open, and there she was, the woman from the cafe. She sat behind a wide desk, sunlight catching the rim of her glasses. Not the lost, embarrassed woman clutching a declined card. This version of her was composed, powerful. My throat went dry. You. She smiled faintly. Hello again. I froze in the doorway. What is this? Why am I here? Sit, she said gently. Please. I lowered myself into the chair, heart pounding. My voice cracked. If you're here to laugh at me, just get it over with. Her brows furrowed. Laugh at you? Why would I? I shook my head, staring at the floor, because people like me, we're just background, disposable. Is that what you believe? It's what I've lived. My jaw tightened. So, if this is some kind of game... It's not, she cut in softly. I asked to meet you. I looked up confused. Why? She leaned forward, eyes steady. Because that morning, you gave me your last coins. You didn't know me. You didn't even hesitate. Why? I swallowed hard. It was just coffee. No, she said firmly, echoing her words from that day. It wasn't. Not to me. My chest burned. I wanted to snap back, to tell her I didn't need pity. But her voice wasn't mocking. It was searching. Finally, I muttered, because I've been there, humiliated, helpless. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. She studied me. You have children, don't you? My head snapped up. How do you? I asked around, she admitted. 2 girls. I stiffened, defensive. Leave them out of this. Her tone softened. I'm not here to hurt you. I just wanted to understand. I clenched my fists. Understand what? That I'm broke? That I'm 1 paycheck away from losing everything? Congratulations, you figured it out. Her eyes didn't flinch. Instead, she whispered, sometimes the poorest are the richest in heart. The words struck me harder than I expected. I wanted to reject them, but my throat tightened, betraying me. I don't need fancy lines. I muttered. I need rent money. Silence filled the room. Then she rose, walked to a side table, and poured 2 cups of coffee. She set one in front of me. Last time you gave me coffee, she said. Today, I'd like to return the gesture. The steam rose between us. My hands trembled as I touched the warm cup. It felt symbolic, like the world had flipped. I don't get it, I said finally. Why me? Why care? Her gaze softened. Because kindness is rare. And because you remind me of something I lost a long time ago. I wanted to press her, to ask what she meant, but fear held me back. This wasn't my world. I didn't belong in this office, with its leather chairs and city views. I was a man with holes in his shoes and daughters who saved bread for me. Still, I sipped the coffee. It was rich, smooth, worlds apart from the cheap instant mix I sometimes bought. My chest ached, not from the taste, but from the strange weight of being seen. When I finally set the cup down, I whispered, "Thank you, but don't mistake me for something I'm not. I'm just trying to survive." She tilted her head, almost smiling. Maybe survival is where the real strength is. I didn't know how to answer. All I knew was my life had just shifted, and the door I never dared knock on had opened wide. Her words lingered in me long after I left that office. Maybe survival is where the real strength is. I carried them home like a stone in my pocket, heavy but impossible to throw away. A few days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Bill collectors haunted me enough, but I answered. "Would you bring your daughters to my office tomorrow evening?" It was her voice. Calm, steady. My chest tightened. "Why? What do you want with us?" "Just come," she said softly. "I promise, no tricks. I'd like to meet them." I should have said no, but something in her tone, gentle, almost human, made me whisper, "All right." The next evening, I walked in with my girls clutching my hands. Their shoes scraped the polished floor, their giggles echoing awkwardly in the wide hall. "Daddy, is this a castle?" Lila asked, eyes wide. I forced a smile. "Something like that, sweetheart." Inside her office, she rose from her chair and knelt to their level. "You must be the twins," she said warmly. "I'm so glad you came." The girls pressed into my sides, shy but curious. "Say hello," I murmured. "Hi," they whispered in unison, their little voices melting even the cold corners of the room. She guided them toward a basket of toys set neatly in the corner. I thought they might get bored while we talk. My throat caught. She prepared for them. As the girls busied themselves stacking blocks, I sat stiffly across from her. "All right," I said, "what's this really about?" She folded her hands, studying me. "I told you last time, your kindness struck me, but it's more than that. I see something in you." I shook my head. "You see a janitor who can barely pay rent." Her gaze sharpened. "I see a father who skips meals so his daughters can eat. I see a man mocked for his work, but still holding his head up. And I see myself." I blinked. "Yourself?" She leaned back, her voice lower. "I wasn't born into this office or this life. There were years when I wore the same pair of shoes until they split. Years when kids laughed at me because my lunches came from food banks. I know what it feels like to be invisible." Her confession caught me off guard. She looked too polished, too untouchable to have ever known hunger. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked warily. "Because I want to help you." Her words landed like thunder. Not out of pity, not charity, but because someone once helped me, and it changed everything. I'd like to be that hand for you. My fist tightened on my knees. "Help me how?" "Stability, opportunities, a chance to breathe without wondering if tomorrow you'll break." My pulse raced. "And what do you want in return?" She shook her head. "Nothing, except maybe for you, to believe you're worth it." I barked out a bitter laugh. "Worth it? Look at me. Look at them." I glanced at my girls, their hair messy, their dresses faded from too many washes. "We don't belong in rooms like this." Her eyes softened. "And yet, here you are. And they're beautiful. Do you know they've been smiling since they walked in? They've lit up this whole office." I turned. The girls were giggling, holding up a crooked tower of blocks. "Daddy, look." Emma squealed. I smiled despite myself. "That's amazing, baby." "See," the woman said gently. "They don't care about your job title or the holes in your shoes. They care that you're here, that you love them, that strength no amount of money buys." Her words dug deep, loosening the wall I'd built around my pride. But fear still coiled in me. I can't owe anyone. I've lived too long being at the mercy of others. If I fall into your hands. She leaned forward, her voice quiet but firm. "This isn't about falling into my hands. It's about standing beside me. Think of it as rebuilding. Together." My throat tightened. I stared at the coffee cup in front of me, untouched. What if she's real? What if this is a chance I beg for in whispers to my wife's photo? But doubt hissed. And what if it's another humiliation waiting to crush you? I rubbed my face, torn in half. I don't know if I can trust this. Her reply was almost a whisper. Then trust your daughters. Don't you see how happy they are here? I looked at them again. 2 bright stars in a room I never imagined stepping into. Their laughter filled the silence, drowning out my fear. Finally, I exhaled. I'll think about it. Her smile was small but genuine. That's all I ask. I walked out of her office that night with her words circling my head. Trust your daughters. Their laughter still echoed in my ears. For days, I wrestled with doubt, pride, and fear. But one morning, I saw my girls leaving for school in their threadbare coats, and something inside me broke. Maybe it was time to try. When I called her, my voice was shaky. All right, I'll accept your help, but only for them, not for me. Her answer was simple. For them, then, that's enough. Weeks passed, and change crept into our lives like sunlight through a cracked window. One evening, as we sat around our tiny kitchen table, I unfolded 2 crisp envelopes. Girls, I said, you're starting at a new school next week. Lila's eyes grew wide. A new school? With swings. Emma gasped, and maybe books that aren't all torn. I chuckled, though my chest ached with disbelief. Yes, with swings. And real books. They squealed and threw their arms around my neck. Daddy, you're the best. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. No, angels. I'm not the best. I'm just finally letting someone help us. The following week, I walked them to their new school. Their hair was neatly tied, their shoes no longer patched with tape. I watched as they joined the line of children, nervous but excited. Daddy, Emma whispered, holding my hand. What if they don't like us? I knelt, looking into her worried eyes. They'll like you. How could they not? You're brave and you're kind. That's all that matters. Lila tugged my sleeve. Will you wait for us here after school? Always, I promised, no matter what. As they disappeared inside, I stood at the gate, tears stinging my eyes. For once, I wasn't terrified of tomorrow. Work changed, too. She arranged an interview for me at one of her companies, nothing fancy, but steady and fair. I walked in trembling, feeling like an imposter, but walked out employed. No more mops and whispered insults in dim hallways. That night, I set dinner on the table, warm food, not just scraps. Lila bit into her plate and said with full mouth, Daddy, this tastes like a feast. Emma giggled. Yeah, like we're princesses. I laughed, though my chest squeezed. Well, I guess that makes me your chef and your servant. They giggled louder, filling the room with music. Yet even as life brightened, shadows clung to me. One night, after they fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my wife's faded photo. Am I betraying you? I whispered. Every step forward feels like I'm walking away from you. Her smile in the photo didn't answer, but her eyes seemed to. She had always wanted the girls to be safe, to laugh freely. Still, the guilt pressed heavy. A few days later, the woman called me into her office again. You're doing well, she said. The girls are glowing. I shifted in my chair. I don't know how to thank you. Sometimes I wonder if I deserve this. Her voice softened. It's not about deserving. It's about accepting life's bridges when they're offered. Don't tear yourself down. Walk across. I lower my gaze. It's just my wife. I feel like I'm leaving her behind. She was quiet for a moment, then said gently, Maybe you're honoring her by giving the girls a life she dreamed for them. Her words sank deep, though the ache didn't vanish. That weekend, I took my daughters by the hand and walked to the cemetery. The autumn wind cut through my coat, but their small fingers warmed mine. We stood before the grave, flowers trembling in the breeze. Lila tilted her head. Daddy, is Mommy listening? I nodded slowly. Always. Emma whispered, then tell her okay. I knelt, pressing a hand to the cold stone. My voice broke. I'm trying, I said softly. I'm doing my best. Please forgive me for moving forward. The wind carried my words away, and for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, she had heard me. The wind at the cemetery still clung to me as I buttoned my shirt days later. My daughters twirled in their new dresses, laughing in front of the mirror. I'd whispered to my wife that I was trying, and now I was about to prove it, even if my knees trembled inside. "Daddy, do I look like a princess?" Lila asked, spinning. I smiled. "Not like a princess. You look like my whole world." Emma tugged at my sleeve. "Do we really have to go to that big party?" "Yes," I said gently. "But remember, you don't have to be anyone but yourselves." The company hall glowed with chandeliers, polished marble floors reflecting the light. My hands were clammy, but I walked in with my daughters holding tight to me. For the first time, I didn't feel out of place. People turned. Some nodded politely, others whispered. I felt their eyes on my suit, clean, pressed, borrowed confidence stitched into every seam. My girls stood tall, smiling as though the room belonged to them. Then I saw him, the CEO, the man whose laughter once pierced me like knives. He was shaking hands, booming with false charm. At first his eyes slid past me without pause. Then he looked again, closer, slower. His face stiffened. I saw the exact moment recognition struck. His jaw twitched, his glass of wine stilled. "Yes, it's me, the janitor you mocked, the father you shamed." But I didn't say a word. He stepped forward, voice faltering. You're? I met his stare, calm. "A father, same as that day." His mouth opened, then closed again. Around us, the chatter dimmed. Heads turned. Silence rippled through the crowd like a wave. My daughters looked up at me, curious but unafraid. Emma whispered, "Daddy, is that the mean man?" I crouched, smoothing her hair. "Doesn't matter who he is. What matters is who we are." She smiled and squeezed my hand. "We're together." From the corner, she appeared, the woman. She walked beside me, her presence steady as a mountain. When the CEO saw her, his face drained of color. "You," he stammered. "You brought him?" Her reply was quiet, but it cut sharper than his mockery ever had. "I didn't bring him. He walked here himself." Gasps murmured through the room. He looked from her to me, sweat beading on his temple. For once, he had no joke, no insult, only silence. I felt every eye in the hall, waiting for me to strike back, to gloat. But there was nothing I needed to say. I stood taller, squeezed my daughter's hands, and turned toward the exit. My silence spoke louder than revenge ever could. The girls skipped beside me, their laughter filling the quiet space I left behind. Outside, the night air was cool against my face. I let out the breath I'd been holding for years. Lila looked up at me, her eyes glowing. "Daddy, everyone was staring at you." I chuckled softly. "Let them stare." Emma leaned against my side. "Daddy, we're proud of you." Those words, gentle, pure, hit deeper than any applause, any victory. I wrapped my arms around them both. "You're the reason I stand, the reason I keep moving. If you're proud, then I've done enough." We walked into the night, three shadows bound together by love stronger than humiliation, stronger than loss. The world had mocked me, broken me, nearly buried me. But in the end, it was revenge that lifted me. It was the small hands holding mine, whispering in the dark, "Daddy, we're proud of you." And that silence, that truth, was louder than anything else.